Bud, gas, weed, ganja, cannabis. Legal in 39 out of 50 states, but not the state of Indiana. At least not yet.
Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
And that's when I smelled it.
I'll get straight to the point. I found marijuana in the house.
We don't know anything about what legal cannabis looks like.
Don't you want to be cool?
Colorado voters approved Amendment 20 in the November election.
In Ohio, we have the legalization of recreational marijuana.
The great debate over legalizing recreational marijuana has hit.
Indiana is a state where marijuana is illegal. There's actually only one county that has decriminalized it. If you get caught outside of this county with marijuana, you can face up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. However, Indiana residents, or Hoosiers, are still using a substance that does the same exact thing as marijuana. In fact, it looks like marijuana, it smells like marijuana, it provides the same exact effects as marijuana, and it is totally legal. So what is it, and how are they able to use it? Well, for all intents and purposes, it is marijuana. It's just cultivated from hemp instead of cannabis. Hemp and cannabis come from the same plant, Cannabis sativa. The main difference between hemp and cannabis is that hemp plants produce a much lower percentage of THC, usually, and cannabis plants usually produce a higher percentage of THC. Hemp plants are legal to cultivate and sell in the United States, provided that the THC percentage does not exceed 0.3%. If hemp plants produce a very small amount of THC, then how are people in Indiana able to use things that give them the same effects? That's because hemp plants produce something called THCA. THCA actually becomes regular THC when it is vaped or burned or cooked in something. So again, for all intents and purposes, this hemp-derived THCA is marijuana. It does the same exact thing.
So with legalized cannabis material, it's under the Farm Bill, we're able to sell Delta 9 products. We have like a disposable vape, cartridges that you would use on a battery, edible gummies, edible chocolates, Rice Krispies. We actively avoid child-friendly packaging, bright, colorful cartoon characters on the bags. We don't carry any of those things. Obviously, we're in a state where regular cannabis use is not legal, and they didn't want to drive, or were unable to drive because of their medical condition, to another state, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan. So they come to us, we have a legal product that is able to be sold in the state. They purchase that in the hopes that they're going to be able to use that in place of heavy pain medications that they don't want to become addicted to.
Alcohol hits different. It makes most people mean, or you can't function. THC is awesome because it's kind of like, I feel good. So it's a Delta 9 that is legal from the 2018 Farm Bill, I believe. The fact that we're not legal yet, but yet we have a company that's sitting here doing this and providing these cocktails with THC. Okay, like what are we doing? Are we gonna do this or not?
Users of federally legalized THCA derived from hemp still run into legal issues in the state of Indiana. A drug test can't differentiate between THC derived from a hemp plant and THC derived from a cannabis plant. So in the state of Indiana, if a mother gives birth to a baby that has even trace amounts of THC, healthcare workers are legally obligated to turn that woman in to CPS for investigation. This causes other issues, like people who are applying for jobs that can't pass a THC drug test, or someone who receives regular drug testing not being able to pass a THC test even though they're using something that is federally legal. However, this might not always be the case. Introducing House Bill 1630. House Bill 1630 is a bill that was introduced in January of 2025, which aims to recreationally legalize marijuana in the state of Indiana, which would make Indiana the very first state to go from criminalized use of marijuana to recreational use of marijuana, bypassing medical and decriminalization first. I asked many Indiana residents, Hoosiers, what their stance was on the legalization of marijuana, and this is what they had to say.
Do you think that Indiana should legalize cannabis?
I do, for a few reasons.
Do I support the legalization of cannabis? Yes, I do.
I'm all in favor of legalizing marijuana nationwide, actually.
My stance is I think it should be legal.
I would have to say that the prohibition of cannabis has never made sense.
There's no reason that it should still be illegal in the state of Indiana.
Well, I think we need to have both medical and recreational.
There's not one person that I know that doesn't want that. So the people that are fighting back have to be corrupted politics. I really don't know what it is, but it's got to be that.
You know, it's only going to help. After all, the Indiana's going to tax it. That's going to get a bunch more tax money rolling in the state. You know, that's going to help with a number of things.
Yes, I am a fond believer in cannabis, and I wish Indiana would take in consideration how much money they are losing. They say that we could gain $200 million a year. I'm saying that it might be more.
So where do you think the money is going? It's going to other states. Why can't it? It should fund our state. We should be legal so we can take those benefits, put it into our school system, put it into our bridges. I don't care what you put it in, but keep the money in the state. People need more. They don't want to drive to Kentucky. They don't want to drive to Ohio. They don't want to drive to Illinois. They don't want to drive to Michigan. Like, there's no reason why Indiana shouldn't have it either.
When Delta products became prominent in the state of Indiana, it was basically done through a loophole of what was allowed based on, well, these strains were what were banned, but this strain does the same thing, but it's not banned.
Now, after 40, having a spinal cord injury, I just realized, you know, there are ways that you can use that product without becoming fully high. I can microdose and feel way more pain alleviation than taking NSAIDs. Being able to take a true to THC product, I can sleep, and I can sleep through for 5 or 6 hours, and I'm not woken up with a jolting pain down my sciatica or a fake cramp in the middle of the night because my body thinks it's having a cramp even though it's just a weird neurological symptom.
When I first got into the house, which was in 2012, I started hearing from people who really had, either they or a family member had medical issues, and could see that in some of these other states, their friends or people they knew or they read about were getting relief from marijuana legally. They didn't have to worry about being arrested if they tried it.
Jumping directly to recreational, all marijuana use is medical. It's all medical. Whether you want to call it recreational or whether, no, it's all medical. I've been using this stuff medically to treat PTSD ever since I got out of the Army. You can call it recreational if you want. Stress is one of the #1 things that kills Americans these days.
I think it's wrong for legislators, lawmakers, other grown adults to look at a different group of adults and say, or the general public, and say, you can't use this, you can't have this, you can't put it into your body. The studies have long shown that there's a benefit, especially for people dealing with pain and situations where it's allowed them to live a freer life without heavy narcotics or pain medications that are addictive and ruin lives.
One name that comes up in this conversation over and over again is the name Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company with headquarters in Indianapolis, Indiana. Many Hoosiers hold the opinion that due to this pharmaceutical giant having headquarters in Indiana, they will do whatever they can to stop marijuana from being legalized. The idea being that Eli Lilly produces medications that could potentially be replaced by much less expensive marijuana.
Most people support it, but there's large lobbying efforts that are being pitted against the people, and the politicians that accept these large donations for their campaign contributions, they get swayed heavily to the money. They're in it for the money, they're in it for the power. So even when you find like 87% of Hoosiers that support this, money talks. And that's why the campaign slogan for my campaign is people over profits. You see such corporations such as like Eli Lilly, who have spent like hundreds of thousands, more than like $200,000 on Indiana politicians alone, let alone the federal side of things. And then no wonder we're like the last state playing catch up, trying to legalize any form of marijuana medicinally or recreationally.
A pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly, is headquartered in Indianapolis. And I can't remember, from what I've seen and read and looked at, I don't remember the last governor we've had that didn't have Eli Lilly's green stamp of approval.
Do you think they're going to put up a fight and try to do whatever they can to keep it from being legalized?
I don't think they will. I think that they are, and they have for a long time. I think that that's something that's actively now a hurdle or an obstacle. I don't think that that's a new thing. I think it's been happening.
Do you think that companies like Eli Lilly supporting candidates financially is causing this to happen? Do you think that this is a determining factor into whether somebody would vote yes or no on a bill like this?
Well, I haven't done the research you have, but I do know that political contributions can make a difference.
I've done a fair amount of my own research into this, and I have located 62 different representatives and senators who have all received money directly from Eli Lilly. Now, Eli Lilly is capped out at a maximum donation amount of $10,000 because Eli Lilly is a corporation. But that doesn't mean that Eli Lilly affiliated companies don't donate a large amount of money as well. For example, Bose McKinney & Evans. Bose McKinney & Evans donated $150,000 to current sitting governor Mike Braun. Bose McKinney & Evans has a subsidiary called Bose Public Affairs Group. Bose Public Affairs Group is on retainer with Eli Lilly. David Ricks, the CEO of Eli Lilly, also donated $10,000 to Governor Mike Braun. But it's not just Eli Lilly that Indiana residents are worried about. It's other corporate interests such as alcohol companies. Alcohol companies are at risk for losing money if marijuana becomes legalized because people might choose to become more recreational with that rather than alcohol. And we see a lot of donations from companies like these as well. Companies like Big Red Liquors, Beer Institute, U.S. Liquors Real Estate Group, U.S. Liquors LLC. Now, this doesn't mean that these politicians are bribed by companies. It could be that these companies have located politicians that believe the same thing that they do, that marijuana should not be legalized.
They're looking for people who will be supportive. It's not that they're bribing them. They're looking for people whose views are compatible.
Is there any logical reason as to why regular THC is still illegal? I think most Hoosiers are just so confused as to why is this happening if most of Hoosiers want it to happen and we already have something similar. What is stopping it from going through?
You've made a really good point. It's not logical. We're stuck in old ways of thinking. I think another barrier is the opposition by the prosecutors. They have been a very strong opponent. Arguments against it here in Indiana is it's still listed as a Schedule I drug.
The vast majority of Indiana residents want marijuana to be legalized. So why is that not happening?
62% support recreational and medical together. Another 25% support medical. So it's way over a majority now.
The only way to allow Indiana voters to vote on specific issues would be to change the Constitution of Indiana, which is very difficult and would probably never happen.
Say we wanted to have a ballot issue on marijuana. The change would have to be approved by the legislature in 2 separate bienniums. Have to be the same language before it could go out to the public to allow ballot issues. That's when cannabis could be voted on by the people.
For Hoosiers that would like this to be legalized, that want to take some sort of action to help push legislators to pass a bill that would benefit them, what can they do? What are some actions they can take to help push this through?
Well, first of all, they need to show up. Town hall meetings, legislators are participating in those all over the state while we're in session. Sometimes we have our own town hall. Sometimes it's put on by the League of Women Voters, the Chamber of Commerce. Be aware of opportunities to talk with your legislator.
Many Hoosiers are still left with a lot of questions. Will marijuana ever be legalized in Indiana? Are Indiana politicians supported by companies because of their views, or do companies support politicians in order to make their views? And if the overwhelming majority of Indiana residents want marijuana to be legalized, why is that not happening? I do have to add to this video that when I'm doing any sort of journalism, I try to be as non-biased as possible. However, I think that my bias showed very, very hard in this video, so I think it's only fair that I tell you what I believe. I personally think that there's no logical reason why marijuana should not be legal in the state of Indiana. I say all that as someone who does not use THC or CBD in any way, shape, or form. I do not use marijuana, I do not use hemp, I don't use anything whatsoever. But I think that people should have access to it. And even if I didn't agree with it, the overwhelming majority of Indiana residents want it to happen. Many of these elected officials are actively ignoring what Indiana residents want to happen, which leaves a lot of questions. Thank you very much for watching, and if you would like to support me, I would really appreciate a like or a subscribe. You can also check out my Patreon here, where I post behind the scenes content and episodes before they air on YouTube. I also have a website where you can get hoodies like this one or really cool t-shirts, and stay tuned for the next video, which I think is going to be even better.